Good evening and welcome to Big Fat Arts. I'm Stephen Cain, and tonight I'll be speaking to Erin Shale, from the editor from the book Inside Out. Good evening, how are you?
Good, thanks Stephen, how are you?
Good, thank you. Basically, let's just talk about the background we have. Where did you actually come from and how did this book come about?
Well, I'm a teacher and a counsellor in a Melbourne high school, and a little over 2 years ago one of my ex-students attempted suicide, and I was his visitor each day for 6 or 7 weeks while he was in a hospital, and sat at his bedside and realised how devastating the situation is for young people who are dealing with their sexuality.
Right. And what inspired you to actually write this book or edit this book and get people to put in their short stories?
Well, that young man, Robert, his story is the first story in the book, and he said to me, is it possible to be gay and happy? And can I have a successful life being a gay person? And I said to him, you definitely can. There are many, many happy gay people who are very successful, leading wonderful lives. And I looked around for material for him to read and found that there's not a lot of Australian material and a lot of current material showing people's lives. So I went about meeting people and collecting stories to show young people like that and their families the reality that the stereotypes are stereotypes, and that a gay person can be happy, successful and have a relationship and lead a very fulfilling life.
Right. And who actually wrote the stories? Can you give me an example of how you actually met them?
Oh, there's a huge range of people, from young students, the two youngest writers, one is 18 and one is 19, two young girls who had to get out of a country town because of the homophobia there, Ian Roberts, a well-known rugby player, Dorothy McRae-McMahon, a Uniting Church minister, Monique Brumby and the Blue House, who are well known on the music scene. The people from all different backgrounds. A 70-year-old woman who was with her partner for 42 years, and her story is absolutely wonderful. So there's a huge range of people. I wanted to really put a face to the gay community, because people don't often have the opportunity to really meet people and to see beyond the stereotypes, and these stories are so uplifting. They really are inspirational. They're a bloody good read. I mean, everyone would enjoy them. The gay community, they are really a celebration of how wonderful people are.
Fantastic. And how did you get to publish the book?
It was very, very difficult. I have a huge stack of rejection letters, and they would say the stories are fascinating, exciting, insightful and moving, but there isn't a market out there for these stories. So I got rejection upon rejection until finally they landed, thank God, on the desk of a young editor in Melbourne from Bookman Press, Nadine Davidoff, and she was absolutely wonderful and believed in the stories. She loved them, as other editors had, but she also could see how desperately they were needed, and I thank her for that.
Great. And basically, can you tell me a couple of stories and what they actually talk about?
Right, they talk about everything: love, loss. They talk about struggling with initially realising their sexuality, how they coped with that, experiences at school. Some of them are people who are currently working, and what it's like in a work environment. They really pour out their hearts, and they talk about some of the most intimate struggles of their lives. The funny things, some of these stories will make you burst out laughing. They're not all sad stories by any means. So you'll laugh, but you'll also cry. So it's an opportunity to really see into people's hearts and souls. And you can really see that this isn't an inclination. These people haven't been converted. They're powerful people who are proud to tell their stories. It's such a celebration. I can't stress that enough. And I really am relying upon the gay community to pour your favourite drink, put your feet up, get the book, and you will love it. These are our stories, and the face on the cover. I mean, there's no face on the cover, because we all know Catherines and Roberts. We all know Travises. I mean, these are people that we can identify with. We've been through these times, and so the stories will touch the gay community, but they're a celebration, and we need now to have our families read these stories and to get these stories out to the people who do have stereotypes.
Right, so you would like the families to sort of read these stories for parents?
Absolutely. My dream would be to have this book in every secondary school in Australia. that would save people's lives, young people who are living in silence and loneliness. It should be such a celebration, falling in love. These stories talk about falling in love and what a wonderful experience that was. And it should be something a young person is excited about and can share with their families. And I think if parents could read these stories, they'd realise that there is, after all, not so much to be, well, nothing to be afraid of. It should be a normal part of every person's life, the right to live your life with integrity. And I'm hoping that the stories will give back that to people.
Okay, and can you see any future with this story? Can you see another volume 2 coming out, or?
I've got many more stories, hundreds of stories. But right now I'd like to make sure that this volume reaches the people who need to read it.
Okay, well, thanks very much for your time, Erin.
Thank you.
And we can get this book out at any bookshop.
Should be.
It's called Inside Out from Erin Shale, the editor. Thank you. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Stephen.
Bye.
Thank you.
And welcome back to Big Fat Arts. Now I'll be speaking to Helen Lull, who wrote the play The Dark Room. How are
Sorry,
you this evening?
dark room without the D.
Oh, okay.
One word.
How are you?
I'm fine, thanks. And you?
Good.
Yeah.
Can you tell me a bit about yourself? How did you actually start writing plays?
I fell into writing plays by accident, actually. I was a poet and an actor in community theatre in an earlier life. And we were putting on a review and they wanted original scripts, so I just said I'll have a go. And found that somehow I'd absorbed all the technical things that go into making a play work. And dialogue came reasonably fluently to me, so I got hooked on it.
Right.
And just then went on to write a one-act play, which kind of was successful in that it won a Best Actress award when it was performed at Noosa Arts Festival, and so then I just kept writing. But I was a late starter in the writing stakes. I wrote my first play just before my 40th birthday, so I'm a late bloomer as a writer, yeah.
Okay. And how many plays have you written? So you've written about, how many plays have you written? You said you won 97, was that correct?
I've written half a dozen plays, and most of them have had workshops, public readings, etc. But the last time I saw Howard was my first commercial success, late 97, yeah.
Okay, and The Dark Room, tell me a bit about it.
Dark Room is about a father-son conflict. It's about a gay photographer called Darkroom because he's a photographer, and he's put his life on hold after the death of his lover from AIDS. So he holds himself up in this wretched little flat with all his life sealed away in cardboard boxes. And his worried friend, being Jewish and thinking when you're in crisis, you know, you call out for your family to come in and help, contacts his long estranged dad, Arthur the retired butcher, who dutifully lands up on the doorstep with his cat with him in a cat basket. And Arthur's a lovely, you know, typical Australian guy, decent bloke, the sort of bloke, if he was in the pub with his mates, he'd be the one who'd stand back and be sober and make sure everybody got home safely, all that stuff. But of course he's a complete homophobe, he's a different generation, he just doesn't understand. So not only is the son dealing with a grief crisis, but now he's got to cope with dad and this identity thing as well.
Yeah, the homophobia.
Yeah.
And who inspired you to write these plays and write this play, The Dark Room?
Well, number one, I guess, because it was an issue that didn't seem to have been played as a foremost, forefront issue. It's kind of been treated as a subplot. And the fact that I've got gay friends in their late 40s and 50s, intelligent, articulate men who have you know, come out openly to all their friends and everybody and leading a full-on gay lifestyle, yet they still can't face, even at that age, coming out to their parents. You know, there's just that gap that they can't cross, or that they recognise the parents can't cross, you know. So I just wanted to explore that situation and see how, you know, prejudice and reconciliation can actually be worked through. So it probably sounds awfully serious, but I have to say there's a lot of biting humour in the piece, particularly from the quirky friend and boss, Daniel, he's in a duty-bound marriage, and he actually starts to question his own sexuality and the nature of his relationship with his friend. So with those ingredients and with Dad, and flashbacks to Mum, who's a very arty person called Magenta, and the influence she had on her son, and actually shows how the mother, it widened the gap between father and son. So it's kind of, you lift the lid off, and then all these family misunderstandings come out, and you see that the resentments and the misunderstandings, you know, go very deep indeed. Yeah.
Sounds great.
Yeah.
And how did you actually get the production going? How did you get the person to produce this?
Okay, well, the script was developed through Melbourne Writers Theatre, so when they thought it was ready, they gave it a public reading, and a personal friend of mine, Beng O, who's a director, came along to the reading and liked the play and said he'd like to do it. And I was quite excited. He's a founding member of Outcast, I should mention. So it became an Outcast project, a combo between Outcast and Melbourne Writers Theatre. And so I was quite excited at having Beng's influence in the play, because he likes abstract minimalist theatre, and this is a very naturalistic play, and he recognised it as such. So he was looking forward to this change of pace. And also he thought the relationships, particularly between Dad and son, just rang so true and was so funny and yet so painful. The people in the reading actually laughed and then they cried, you know. So I felt I'd really done something and made it work, because it affected people to that emotional degree, you know. So yeah, Outcast took it up and I'm really happy about it.
And it was a small cast, you said?
Yes, 4 people, just the father, the son, his friend Daniel, and Magenta, the mother, who's actually dead when the play begins, but we see her through flashback scenes, so we see her influence on the family situation.
And what sort of audience do you want to actually come and see this play? What sort of community?
I want a wide audience. I've been labelled by a couple of dramaturgs and directors as a cross-culture writer. I'm not quite sure what that means myself, but I write gay plays exclusively because, well, for one, there just aren't enough gay plays. I'd like to see more of them, and I like the idea of contributing to them, and I want to write for a wider audience, not only gays, but people that, you know, from the wider community that will come and understand how these people feel in the different situations, and hopefully foster a greater understanding all round, you know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thanks very much for coming in tonight, Anna.
Okay.
And you can see the dark room at the Carlton House.
Courthouse, yeah.
Carlton Courthouse,
Right.
sorry. From the Thursday, the June the 3rd onwards. Thanks very much.
Thanks very much.
Well done.